Welcome to Live Wild with me, Hilary Rose. This is the podcast that encourages you to be yourself, no matter who that may be. And my next guest does just that. In her words, she supports people on their journey of embodying their cosmic blueprint. Doesn't that sound gorgeous? And it is. Merle O'Grady is a former jewellery designer turned crystal healing expert, a chart reader in human design, gene keys and astrocartography. Sounds complicated, it is, but Merle's job is to simplify this knowledge into easy, everyday wisdom via her one-to-one sessions so that we can understand ourselves and our place in the world that bit better. We chat about her career evolution, motherhood, breakdowns versus breakthroughs, human design, Beyonce, and above all, crystals.
I think what's so magical about crystals is they come from the earth. So, they help us to connect with the earth in situations where we're maybe not able to lie down on the floor in a forest. At a very basic level, that's sort of what their frequency helps us with. But the internal structure of crystals that we can't see is what makes them so magical. So every crystal has what's called a crystalline lattice structure. So if you imagine that the sort of molecular arrangement inside your quartz heart that you have there is this expansive, perfect geometry that's frequency is so stable it cannot be changed. Like even with quartz, because it's piezoelectric, you can actually squeeze quartz and it will emit an electric charge. Wow. But even as you squeeze it, it's the perfect geometry within it will bounce back. It's never going to be altered. It cannot be changed. Which is really, really beautiful. So the symmetry and the perfection, they're just the most perfect example, I suppose, of geometry within nature. And the reason that they're so useful in technology, like if we were all still carrying massive bricks from the 80s around instead of our iPhones, is this ability to program them. So there was an experiment in Stanford University where they were able to get an hour of video footage of the Mona Lisa it was a lab-made quartz, but it was a lab-made crystal, but it was basically 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch cube. And you could store an hour's worth of video on that. Wow. And that's just at a very, basic level. Like we don't fully understand what crystals can essentially do. And, Tesla believes that they were living forms, and there's much more intelligence within them than I think that we've discovered yet.
Merle was kind enough to give me my own human design reading, and although it may sound a little self-indulgent, me being the guinea pig helped explain how it all works. For more information about Merle and her work, visit merleogrady.com or visit her Insta at Merle O'Grady Design. This is an epic 2-hour chat, and we could have talked for days. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Without further ado, here's the show. So it is my greatest pleasure today to welcome Merle O'Grady to the Live Well podcast. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. It's so good to talk to you.
It's great. I'm so excited for this conversation. And I wanted to tell you that I actually have been a fan of yours for quite some time because a friend of mine sent me from your shop a little box of crystals, and I love crystals. I always have. Crystals and rocks have been my thing since I was a kid, but I really don't have an awful lot of knowledge about them. I just like them. I like the pretty things. So I got the box of crystals, found your name on it, found you online, and I was like, oh my god, your work is so interesting. I loved it. And then at the time as well, this was back in 2020, you were running mystery crystal circles, and it was all kind of intuition based. It was gorgeous. It was such a lovely offering, and I joined them twice, and it was just at a time as well which was quite restrictive, I suppose, in 2020. And it was this, I was always grateful that you held this lovely space for people to just chill out, and express themselves and explore something different. And so since then, and I've bought jewelry from you as well, since then I've just been a mega fan of yours. I really, really am.
Thank you. And those circles were so good for me as well, I have to say, you know, because it was such a restrictive time, because we weren't getting to gather, and I wasn't really sure how the online space would work, but it's become a kind of evolution that we are now able to have that sense of community, not in a physical space anymore. So it was as good, it was nourishing for me as it was for everyone who came. It really, really
Good.
was.
Good. Let's backtrack for a little bit and talk about your own personal evolution, coming from a designer and then into jewelry and then leaning into crystals. Like it's such a it's I find it so fascinating.
Oh, thank you. It has been a kind of long road, but there's been threads of the same, you know, same magic, I suppose, weaving through it along the way. So I studied in Limerick. I did fashion design. Then I moved to London for what was supposed to be a few weeks internship, and I ended up staying for a decade.
Wow.
So I didn't go back to my final year at fashion, you know, kind of women's wear. So then I just was an intern, and I was working as a seamstress. And it was really fun time, because there were, you know, where I was working, everybody else was creative, and this was sort of their side, you know, their side. Everyone had a side hustle basically. So there were loads of St. Martin students there, and although we were, you know, we were working, doing something repetitive, and working as seamstresses, the kind of electricity and the sort of creative spark was always there. And that, I think, really opened me up to sort of the possibilities of yeah, a lot more creativity than I probably had before. So I really do, you know, have to give a lot of credit to those first few years in London, particularly, to really yeah, just open me up to these ideas and the openness, and yeah, just all this possibility and kind of electricity, I suppose, is the best way I can kind of put it. So I stayed there for 10 years, and I specialized then in accessory design. So I went to Cordwainers, which was kind of more famous for shoes. It's sort of where Jimmy Choo went. And then I had a stall in Spitalfields Market, because I've never wanted to work for anybody else. And I sort of got, you know, quite far along when I graduated with being a designer for other brands. And at the final the final hurdle, I would just be like, no, I can't do it. Or some other opportunity would come up that would kind of expand my own business a little bit more, or kind of go, hey, this is coming, you know, put your faith in this entrepreneurship journey rather than working for someone else. So I'm a bit stubborn like that. I'll do whatever I have to. And I did, you know, to be able to work for myself. You know, I worked as a stylist assistant and teacher, and whatever I had to do. You know, I used to do hen parties with jewellery making, which was hilarious, because you would have these drunk, you know, the champagne everywhere, and they'd be wielding pliers and sniffing wire. But it was so much, you know, it was really good fun as well. But it was funny,
Brilliant.
you know, from like summer jobs teaching art to kids, and then I was like, this is full circle. It's the same tactics I'm employing.
Yeah, because they're behaving like children. Yeah.
Exactly. And but this time there's, you know, sharp objects and metal. But it was so much fun. And, you know, again, there was so much possibility there. So it was a really good place to be. And then when I had my stall in Spitalfields, I lived next to this architectural salvage yard in East London. And I found this literal bucket of 18th century chandelier crystals. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? And it was from some
Treasure.
beautiful ballroom, and it was just gorgeous. So I just started making pieces with whatever kind of jewelry skills I had, which I just sort of figured out for myself. And I've been making jewelry since I was very little. Like I still have my old Fimo first earring I ever made and stuff here. But I just added it to my stall in Spitalfields, which was selling bags. I was designing handbags. And then the jewelry just started kind of taking off. So I kind of then moved into using raw crystals like I do now, but mixed with perspex and more industrial materials. So I always liked this mishmash of different things coming together. And now I know my human design, my kitchen's environment like you, which means that I kind of have to alchemize things. I have to put things together. I have to create something new from what exists already. Has to be mashed up, has to be changed into something new. So
Mm.
then from then I got a few stockists around East London. I had a beautiful stockist in Dublin, which is where Beyonce bought some of my first pieces, which
I
is
mean, wow,
it's
that must
ridiculous.
have blown your mind to
It
know that
was,
Beyonce bought your pieces, came into the shop and actually like came out with a bag full of your
yeah,
stuff.
it was amazing. It was really amazing. And that was like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
And so from there I showed at London Fashion Week. And then I got picked to go to Paris Fashion Week that same year. So it was all just a sort of whirlwind
Mm.
of madness, really. And all the time, I suppose, I was just sort of doing what was kind of flowing through me. There's no way that I can sort of explain why things happened how they did. They
Mm.
just they just did. I just felt this kind of real need to express myself in a particular way. I think with all creatives, it just sort of, it's a flow, and you don't really know what's happening when it's happening, and you put it out there and you hope that it's received well, and thankfully it was. And yeah, it was sort of a whirlwind of celebrities wearing my stuff and magazines and
Crazy.
all of that.
What age were you when this was happening?
So I was trying to think back. So the first time I showed at Fashion Week was September 2009. So 25, 26, I think. Is
Wow.
that
Yeah,
right?
that's so young, really,
No,
when you think.
25. Yeah. No,
I know
no,
it's a blur.
83. I'm trying yeah, I'd say 26, 26. Yeah. Yeah. But it was,
Wow.
it was pretty crazy. So, um, yeah, the peaks and troughs at that
Mm,
age were quite sort of extreme, um,
absolutely.
because I was trying to fit in with a sort of an industry as one single 26-year-old,
Wow.
in her flat, making all this stuff and trying to sell. I had a little concession, and there was a concession in Selfridges, all these big shops that I had,
Mm.
and I was trying to export to Asia, and I was trying to,
Oh my
sign
God,
all this
my heart
stuff.
is racing thinking of the workload that you took on. It's incredible.
I
And I
know, but
suppose having that kind of success so early on and feeling, and I think as well, we live in a society where we're just driven to, produce success, more, 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 more. And it's a very, I think, masculine orientated way of living. Whereas, now for me, I've had to tap into a more feminine, receptive way of living, and but it was forced upon me. And I imagine it was the same for you in that, like, I suffered mega burnout, so it was imposed upon me, like, no, you can't continue living and go, go, go the way you did.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think you probably had something similar. Am I right?
yeah, absolutely. The When you're in it, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well, you think it's the only way. It's the
Yeah.
thing, you think it's what you have to do. And I
Mm,
think I think looking back, that was the trap that I was in. And I would just work such insane hours, and I was physically ill, and I
mm-hmm.
was not sleeping, and I was doing everything myself. And it doesn't help that I've got this like perfectionist tendency, so that anytime I outsourced anything, it wasn't quite right.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, it's what it's you, and especially I suppose with the seasons, when I was showing at sort of the fashion seasons, it felt like this hamster wheel, and I'd be in
yeah.
massive debt from creating the last collection. I'd be paying for exhibition space, then you'd be getting your orders and your wholesale orders in, but they wouldn't pay you for another 6 months or whatever. So you're in this
Wow.
awful cycle of financial stuff, as well
Yeah.
as extreme fatigue. And also when you're trying to do creative work, when you're burnt
Yeah.
out and you're exhausted, the spark and the magic can disappear really, really quickly.
Hundred
And
percent.
so
100%.
it's
Yeah.
trying to claw back that sense of self again. And what got me started in this, what actually inspires me, that isn't
Mm,
thinking about the money side of it, or thinking about what's going to work with particular shoots next year or whatever. When
mm.
you strip all that back, that's when you have that sort of pure creativity. And when all those conditions come in, you lose your spark. You also lose, I think, it dulls your sort of creative abilities to some degree, because you've become sort of part of a machine rather than this
Yes.
magical essentially flow state.
Yeah, I feel the same because I felt like I really had to. I always like bring it back to the bare bones. And my thing that I always say, but I don't always live by it, and I try to live by it, is keep it simple. Keep it simple, keep it simple, keep it simple. And like you said, that's where the spark is then, like, I mean, I'll go through phases of like dumping everything in the house, like just get rid of it all and start again, because it just feels like it's necessary to do that, to clear out the clutter in not only my physical space, but also in my mental space, in my emotional body, in the whole lot. I need to clear out everything so that I have that spark of creativity again, and not, constantly worrying like you were, juggling all these different balls and letting people down. And then, you're a mum and I'm a mum as well. So it's like that has to be a priority, but then your own personal health has to be a priority. There is so much going on all at the once. And I always feel like we kind of have been sold a pup a little bit, in the sense that as women of this generation, we were told you can have it all. You just gotta bust your balls to do it. You know what I mean? Bust your proverbial balls. But it's like, for me, I've come to thinking that it's a toxic mindset, that it's really, really, really toxic, that there are phases of your life that you can have different things. And yes, you can attempt to have it all, or you can juggle a lot. God bless anybody who can, in fact, do it all. Please write a book and tell us how it's done. But other than that, I really think it's toxic for women to actually be growing in that society. And you just see an awful lot of women getting physically ill, far more than they had done in previous generations, mentally unstable, mentally unwell. I mean, it's just, it's like you have to take the pressure off a bit, guys, and just go, okay, we can have all those things, but we don't have to have them all together all at once.
Yeah, 100%. And it's, yeah, like you said, with souls the pup. I love that. But it's sort of like this sort of, it's almost kind of the American dream. And then you realize, oh God, the American dream is actually working myself into the ground, barely scraping by, because I'm, it doesn't exist. It essentially doesn't exist. And this perfection that we're always striving for doesn't exist. And especially as women, because we have these, I suppose, different roles, within us, especially if you're becoming a parent, the role of mother is as great, as amazing as fathers are, compared
Absolutely.
to the 80s.
Yeah, absolutely. Hands up, they are.
There's still this nurturing pull that comes with being a mother, and the guilt and the societal the societal reward for a dad who's like actually taking his kid to the playground. It's like, oh my God, let's like have a party. He needs his own parade. And you're just like, look at her, she's wrecked. She's actually wearing her slippers to the park. She hasn't slept in days. That's baby sick on her shoulder. Give her the award. But it's the emotional load as well.
It is. And it's funny that you say that, because I overheard a man saying that he was babysitting, and I was like, it's not babysitting if it's your own children. That's just being a parent. Yeah. Babysitting is if you take your nieces or nephews or a neighbor, or you're babysitting for money. Like, you're not babysitting if it's your own kids, okay?
No, it's not. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. No. So yeah, it's really hard to I think live up to these sort of societal standards of what it means to be a successful woman, and I'm doing air quotes, because we're not being rewarded for being mothers. That sort of societal, I suppose, admiration of mothering as a role has pretty much disappeared. So we're coming with this pressure to be something other than that. So if anyone does take sort of time off to want to care for their children, or to see this as a sort of a central focus of their life for a particular time, you can feel awful, because society is saying, but what are you achieving? What are you creating? What are you making?
You dropped out of a potentially very healthy career to raise your kids. You're like, yeah, I did, because it was necessary and because they come first. And, but you're right. It's like a judgment almost, Oh, well, she fell off. She fell off and she went to her kids. Oh, God, she could have done so much.
So much. And that's definitely something I've been through with the sort of, like self-flagellation, like why aren't you being a mother and doing all this stuff? And look, social media hasn't helped that at all, because you can see all these people that don't have massive bags under their eyes going on about their lives. And you're just like,
Yeah.
how are you doing that? I don't
Yeah.
understand. So that can make you feel even worse about, not living
Yeah.
up to these external um markers of what success is. But actually,
Yeah.
the whole journey, and I think you have to go through that breaking point to get back to the point where you decide what success is for yourself, because that's
Mm,
all that matters. But it's a very difficult thing to do in the times that we live in. It's not easy, because there's so much
absolutely.
external projection, and there's so much stimulation that's telling us otherwise, that's telling us, oh,
Absolutely.
you're not doing good enough, because you got through the day and your kid is happy. And no one comes in and gives you sort of I guess, not approval, but even
Yeah, like
if you're,
kudos,
yeah,
just like,
kudos, like
yeah.
any other job, someone would say, hey, great job. And you're like,
Yeah.
no one does that.
Yeah.
No one
Yeah.
says, well done for getting through the day, for managing to get out to get a pint of milk, for doing whatever,
Yeah.
there's none of that.
Yeah.
It's completely lacking. So I think that makes it even more, like you were saying, that masculine energy, like having to lean into that masculine performative energy to feel like we're being successful. And it's toxic. It is
Mm,
absolutely toxic, because we're running our physical and mental well-being into the dirt
yeah.
by trying to compete.
I liked that you talked about you're almost forced to, what way did you put it? It's almost a forced breakdown, and I always felt that as well, like a forced breakdown. You can see it as a breakdown, but I see it as a breakthrough, essentially. And I love this like like there's no better foundation to start from than the hardcore place of rock bottom.
You're so right.
Like if you are at that hardcore rock bottom, you're like, well, this is great because the only way is up from here. And it might feel like, oh God, I'm not grateful for all that I've had or grateful for all the opportunities of the people in my life. It's not that. And for me, from a personal note, I was super grateful for everything. And actually, it was gratitude that really kind of helped me build from that point. But yeah, it's nice now because I feel like I can build what I want now from the rather than what was kind of projected onto me the whole way through nobody's own fault, by the way. And again, hands up, I take responsibility for it all. But now it's at a place of like, okay, I'm calling the shots now. This is my house. I've built it on my hardcore rock bottom. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah. I love it. And that's so much about what's kind of happening energetically at the moment, is
No, yeah.
we're realizing, oh, there's dry rot in the walls of all these systems that we bought into, and we need to actually burn it to the ground and build something brand new again.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the rock bottom is the place from which, the only way is up.
Yeah.
But I think with hindsight, you can always, and I'm sure you can as well, when you look back at those moments of absolute rock bottom, where you think that this is the end, and I've been there, where living in the now is so horrendously painful, that
Yeah.
you don't see a way out. You don't see how you can even get that first little brick on the ground. It just feels so hard. But like you said, from there, any little thing that you can do is entirely your own, and it's
Mm.
entirely being constructed from your heart and your grit, and something much deeper inside of you than any
Mm.
shoddy, partition wall that society gave you. It's all rubbish.
Yeah.
You're building
That
it
had
with a lot of,
wallpaper on it.
yeah. You're building something sustainable. Once you've hit that point of rock bottom, and that you decide, you just have to decide to build something that's entirely yours.
And what's lovely as well, if you think of rock bottom, there's more than likely crystals in that
Oh
hardcore rock
yeah.
bottom as well. So that's a really good place to start.
And yeah, like rock bottom, you're absolutely right. We're always being, as far as we humans can get, we're being held and supported by the earth, when all else fails.
Yeah, lie
Just kind
down,
of lie down.
lie down.
Because if upright life is feeling too much, the
Mm.
power of getting down, or lying on the grass, or lying in a
Oh,
forest, I mean, it's just magical.
it
So yeah, you're
is.
always being held. Your foundation is there. You've got Mama Earth to look after you,
Yeah.
even when you're at that kind of lowest low.
She's the great mother. She's always there, always waiting for us, no matter what we do, no matter what we take. Sometimes she put manners on us, but she's always there waiting for us. It's amazing. Looking back now again I mean, we talked about kind of the early success that you had and maybe your picture of success back then. What's your picture of success now?
It's very different. It's kind of well-being,
Mm,
what do I need to be well? Um,
awesome.
and it's sort of flow, and like you said, that much more feminine energy. And it's, a lot of the, you need a bit of masculine energy if you're running around business. I
Yes.
have, three, I'm sun, moon, Mercury, Aries. I have a lot of fire in my chart. I like action, I like doing things. But I've seen I guess, the negative side of that. And I've seen what going too far into that realm can do
Mm,
to your body and your mind.
yeah.
Um, so success now is much more trusting. So I never trusted before.
Hmm.
I always assumed that my output was the only thing that could sort of attract success. And you look,
Interesting.
that worked. But where I am now is much more kind of connecting to something greater, and connecting to that sense of surrender and trust in a lot
Mm,
of ways. And look, all my studies in astrology and human design and things have sort of, those modalities have really helped me to see that.
mm,
Um, in yeah, that what we've been sold as the only version of success is nonsense, and we can create our own
yeah.
version. And it's
Yeah.
really important to create our own version, because if we don't create our own version, and this is sort of the intentionality that really has supported me with working with crystals, and then just trying to bring intentionality to as many aspects of my life as I can, is that
Mm.
if you don't decide what your version of success is, the world's going to tell you. You're not
Yes.
going to be magically, gifted, exactly what you want, if you don't actually think about what it is that you want and what you value. Like, we don't decide what our values are. Our values are sort of inherited, rather than kind of
Absolutely.
creating them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, generationally, but also societally, it's like it all depends kind of what you're born into, I guess, is kind of, and that's where I talk about when you get to rock bottom, all of that falls away. It did for me anyway. And I grew up in a very safe, secure, beautiful family, but everything that I knew, and I had this kind of like rock bottom, which resulted in a spiritual awakening, just everything fell away that I thought that I knew was not. It was like I didn't know up from down. And then I was able to reprogram my version of my own life and what I wanted. And like you say, my consideration for what I felt was success in that moment. And mine is so similar to yours now. I feel like wellness is the best thing that I can give myself because it vibrates out of me and then what I need comes back to me. It's
Yeah,
really simple.
yeah,
Like, I mean, it sounds complex maybe, but it's actually just really, really simple in that manner. And I find that when I've become I always strive to stay in alignment with, I suppose, my truth, my inner truth. And if I can stay in alignment with that, everything runs smoothly. But if I find myself getting anxious or worried or fearful or losing sleep or tired or burnt out or any of those things, I'm like, okay, these are signals to me. These are little alarm bells for me to stop, reassess, and come back and go, okay, what's causing this? It's a real dive into the finer things in life, and it all then comes back to wellness. Oh, why am I feeling unwell? Okay, well, I didn't eat very well today. All right, well, that's part of it. What else? I didn't do my breath work today. Okay, I do need to have a little bit of that. You know what I mean? It
yeah.
really comes into the fine tuning of taking care of myself so that I can just emanate it out of me and then it comes back tenfold. It's really gorgeous when it happens. And again, it's a trusting and a surrendering that it does and can and will happen.
Absolutely. And I think the awareness of those finer details of your life is so magical, because
Yeah.
you're not just again plowing through, like probably both of us have done at one point, where you just abandon the self to keep
Mm,
up with others, or you abandon yourself to appear to be doing a certain thing because that's the most important sort of that's, you can feel that sort of pressure, the external pressure of how you appear to be. Do I appear successful enough? Am I doing a good enough job? Do people think I'm a good whatever? All of
yes.
that can really you can abandon yourself when you focus too much on that external stuff. And when you come back to yourself, you notice, like you said, why do I feel off? You don't go, oh, I just feel rubbish. I'm going to stick a band-aid over it and I'm going to continue on exactly how as I have been. You kind of go, no, let's regroup, let's reassess, let's see what might have triggered this. You become kind of an investigator into your own life and into your own energy and everything. And it's fascinating. Like once you bring that energy back that you've been just giving away to everything else, you're fascinating. You are fascinating, and everything you go through in your day and how that affects your energy, how that affects your mind, how that affects your physical health. It's just, And I mean, you can go down, which I have a lot, rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole. But ultimately, I think when you've had that sort of rock bottom and then you move upwards and you're building your own house, you're like, yeah, I'm going to research that building material, I'm going to research that. But ultimately, it comes down to that internal truth, like you said, that's your compass. That's what everything moves from. And
100%.
Working on your, like you said, your energetics as a being, and then you can see how that then affects your external world is magic.
And it's what I find really interesting lately is that when you have an awareness of how you work in the world energetically and how the world works, when your consciousness becomes expanded in that manner, it's like you see it instantly then, whereas before I didn't have an awareness of it, so I wouldn't have noticed. So I really have to watch my energy in the sense that if it gets wild or gets out of control, or if there's anger creeping in pardon me, it becomes reflected in my environment very quickly, almost instantly. I call it instant karma. So I have to be really mindful of my instant karma. Whereas before I wouldn't have noticed that, and I love that. I love that because it kind of keeps you on your toes. Like, okay, now I've got this awareness that there's anger creeping in, or anxiety or resentment or any of those negative things. And like, no, I'm going to consciously switch it back now. Going to switch it back, and that's at work. It's like it's a lot of work.
And it's not like, oh, we'll just pretend to be happy, or I'll just do like I'm in an absolute rage and I'm just going to get some time out to do like 10 gratitudes. That could be very difficult to do, and really we again, there's sort of, I suppose, the side of the spiritual community that's just like, don't feel the rage, don't feel the anger. I'm like, no, you have to get it out of your body. You have to feel it. It's something moving through you. You have to experience it. You have to let it go. And that's another sort of band-aid effect, that we're just treating the symptoms and not the root cause of that by just saying, oh no, I'm doing something wrong and I must be grateful in this moment that I'm actually processing a lot of grief or rage or anger or these big emotions. Whereas it's much better to scream.
I agree. I love the point that you make about, there's a lot of people in the spiritual community that just want to live in the light, and that's wonderful, and I get that. But the light and the dark are part of us all. It's like the male, the female, the sun, the moon, the day, night. There's polarity within us all and duality. So I feel like I had to make friends with the dark. And be able to walk through it and not be able to see in it, and be happy enough to sit in it and go, okay, what is this? Let's have a look at this and let's explore it.
Yeah.
Because 100%. By doing that, you invite back in the light. But if you ignore the dark the entire time, it's never going to go away.
No, it's always lurking. It's always the locked basement. It's the horror movie locked basement. Rather than just going down there and switch the light on, then you go, oh God, this is an absolute mess down here.
Let me just tidy it up.
This is going to take a while, But at the end of it, you'll realize what was actually down there. Maybe you'll find some long lost parts of yourself, I think sort of, and shadow work is kind of a big sort of word, I suppose, that you can use, but it doesn't have to be as scary sounding as that.
Yes,
I think it's really more about again, that sort of investigative energy. Like look at it as an investigation, look at it as something to discover. It's a journey of discovery. So just as much as you can have a journey of discovery into what your beautiful innate gifts are, that you can also look at the sort of shadow, or the, like you said, the darkness that can be with it, that is within every human being, and by giving that some kind of loving acceptance and just attention, how transformative that can be.
Absolutely.
And instead of feeling shame around it or hiding it, that you just, I mean, it's a slow process, and it's probably a lifetime process, but once you start to try and give that kind of loving awareness to parts of yourself that you've completely shut away, that you're just coming back into a little bit more completeness. And it's, you know, I think any spiritual journey is not instantaneous, and we live in a culture that is instantaneous. It's instant gratification, and if you are getting frustrated at the lack of progress, you know, you just need to sort of take it back to yourself and go, this is unraveling an entire lifetime of conditioning from your family, from society. And again, it's not judgment against them. It's you know, you can still always maintain self-responsibility within those journeys, but it's a long process, and it's little bits at a time, rather than this big get it all done now, and then I'm going to be enlightened, and I'm going to be healed.
Totally. I had that at the journey. I was like, oh, enlightenment is my goal. And I was like, oh, how naive to even think that, you know? I mean, hopefully maybe someday, I don't know, but an expanded awareness is like, I'm like, I'm good with that. Let's go with that and work from that point.
Absolutely.
Let's get into some of your crystal work, because obviously coming from the jewelry, and then you started to lean really heavily into crystals, and they opened up a whole new world for you, which I'm fascinated by. Let's talk about that.
Well, they were such sort of I just call them my helpers, you know, during a time that I had. So basically I've been working with gemstones all along. I've been working with crystals, but I used to use them in their raw form in my jewelry as much as possible. So I would use like raw pyrite cubes, and like my biggest ever wholesale order was using pyrite natural cubes, and I didn't have any awareness at the time. And then of course, once I began training and learning in crystal therapy, I was like, oh my god, of course it's pyrite, it's such an abundance crystal, and it's like the
beautiful.
But I always, same as yourself, loved crystals as a kid, and really the beauty of them was always like just the actual magic of how they were formed, and how beautiful they was on every mood board, every sketchbook I ever had. I was just really fascinated with them. Like I used to joke that Superman's cave was like my dream house. Just massive quartz points everywhere.
Oh, I love it.
So look, I've been really an admirer of them as these magical things from nature for all my life, and fossils and everything. So before I had Vega, my daughter, I was sort of in that void before you give birth, and you're like, what is actually ahead of me? What is, you know, understanding that this is this precipice that you're on, and that you're moving into something very different, but you've no idea what the experience is going to be like from that moment onwards. So I sort of researched particular stones to use in what I called a labor bracelet, to support me, and just in the run up to having her, just to feel like I had some kind of good energy around me. And that was my first foray into this. That was 7.5 years ago.
Wow.
And now that I have much more awareness and much more of a personal relationship with crystals, like I wouldn't have put half the things I put on that. Like, why did I do that?
Do you still have it?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Cute.
I found it the other day. So I have that, and I have my first ever earring I ever made in my little studio room. So things went really wrong when I was having Vega afterwards, and I had packed loads of crystals in my hospital bag as well, because I had them, because I loved them, and they were around the place. And when I was in hospital afterwards, I just put them up on the end of my bed, and had my bracelet on, and I just felt like, okay, everything has gone completely the opposite way of what I could have imagined this experience going, but I'm bringing this intentionality to it, and I have these little helpers in my hospital room, and I have this. I've considered this, and I feel like I have some energetic help that I have intentionally placed in the situation that I don't want to be in. So it was really just felt really supportive. And then obviously I had a newborn, and Vega,
Yeah.
bless her, I adore her, but she never ever napped.
Oh.
Um, so she napped once in her cot for 20 minutes in her entire life.
Oh my God.
So she would sleep on me. So I
Oh
breastfed
my
her till she
God.
was nearly like 3, because like she's so like, again, she has tons of fire in her brainchild. I'm like, of course, she
Awesome.
has a grand fire trine, which is just like super, super fire. Um, so she was super stubborn and just very vocal about what she wanted, which I really admire in her
Awesome.
now
Yeah.
as a little 7-year-old. But as a baby, when you've not got words and you're trying to understand what's happening, it was madness.
It's a lot of crying. I get it. That's it.
So
There's
much
a lot of,
crying, so much
yeah.
crying. I was
I,
just the girl walking around Herbert Park, kind of, constantly trying to get this child to sleep. It was
oh
like,
man, I
oh.
feel your pain. Yeah.
So look, I was an absolute mess really when after I had her, and I really didn't seek any help for postnatal depression until she was 1.
Wow.
And I
But
sort of
you're kind of
reached,
on, you're on this kind of, sorry to interrupt, but you're kind of on,
yeah,
when I find it at that time, it's like the treadmill. You just can't get off it. You're just balancing everything at that time. It's so intense. It's so
so
intense.
intense, so intense. And then of course, like we were saying, the external side of, oh, why aren't you sleep training, or why aren't you
Yeah.
doing all this, and you're just like, oh, that just goes against my entire being. But and the external battle with my instinctual nature, I think that really
Mm.
began then. And I didn't see it, but I felt the pressure of like, no, my instinct is saying this and society's telling me to do this.
Yeah.
So I basically did attachment parenting, and I didn't mean to. Like I had to wear her all the time. It was just, but
She
like we have
became your accessory.
it became my accessory. But like she's I adore her, and now to see her much more independent, it's like, oh God, it's just a phase, but when you're in it, you don't know it's a phase. So
Yeah.
at around when she was about a year old, I was kind of reaching breaking point where I was waking up in the morning, and the first thought when I opened my eyes, it was like, I was I'm still alive,
Wow.
crap. Like
Wow.
it was just this like wanting this escape, because I hated what my life had become so much, which
Mm-hmm.
again, when you've got this beautiful new child. And I was lucky enough that we didn't get childcare, but I was able to take a break and
Yeah.
mind her myself. And you feel like, oh God, these are all the things, and I should be feeling this, when
Yeah.
actually I felt just awful. But I just wanted someone else to see what a sort of shell of my former self I had become.
Mm.
Um, and I was just waiting for someone tell me, because I'm never going to go and sort this out myself. So
Yeah.
someone see the difference, someone who knew me before see it. And eventually my husband was like, I had one night where it went really, really downhill, and he was
Mm.
like, you have to see
Do
somebody.
something. Yeah.
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 So I did. I
Good.
saw someone for a few months, and at the end of it, she kind of was like, just it's about viewing your life in a much more holistic way, and seeing what kind of nourishment you need. And I really struggled then with sort of creativity, because that was my outlet. So I'd never experienced depression before,
Mm.
because I'd always had creativity,
Mm.
and I really, I if I hadn't had my outlet where I could go draw for 5 hours in my room, or,
Mm.
whatever, something expressive, to have that taken away from me, it just destroyed me completely. So,
Yeah.
so I had a little bit of babysitters come, and because she wouldn't be minded by anybody, what I had to do is I'd face her outwards in the buggy,
Oh
and
God.
I would do a handover with like a beautiful UCD student who would come over, and I do a handover basically with Vega facing outwards, so that she wouldn't notice that someone else was pushing her around. Then I'd race home, and then of course, like I was saying before, the pressure of creativity. If you have any kind of external pressure,
Yeah.
you
No, it
can't
doesn't
do it.
flow. It does
No.
not flow. You're like, okay, I gotta get,
So then I was
5 chapters.
like,
Oh God. Yeah. Yeah.
so then I was like panic designing is the only thing I can describe it as when I would come
Panic
home.
designing. I love it.
So really, look, it wasn't until she was sort of 2.5 that I really came out of that. She
Yeah.
went to Montessori for a few hours in the morning, and I was able to use my hands again, because I literally didn't have access to my hands for the
Wow.
entire day. So that was sort of when I started to come out of that shell, and that's when I really started getting back into my crystals because I had a moment to myself and I knew that I needed to keep working on my mental health and meditating. And I found meditation really difficult because you and I are the same in human design. We have defined heads, which is quite rare, which means that we are constantly getting downloads all the time, all the time.
Thank
So
you
I
for
was
seeing me. I feel seen.
So the only way that a defined head can really meditate is lying down, because you're not getting this like pouring of information through the crown constantly. And if I'd known that, then I wouldn't have beat myself up so much about not being able to do like Calm or Headspace or any of those ads, because, or not ads, apps that I could, I just couldn't do them.
Yeah.
So my crystals gave me an anchor. So I still had them around. And I was like, oh, I'm good. I need something to hold on to. So again, that hand, using my hands. So I would choose a different crystal every day to have that sort of meditation practice with. And that was a kind of game changer. And the more I was able to come to this place of stillness and sort of, much more receptivity, less of the external noise. Each different crystal was sort of, I could feel different, subtle, very subtle energies. I think people think like I'm going to get this, insane experience with a crystal, but it's very subtle energy. And I could use that intentionality to say, okay, today I'm feeling a bit whatever, I'm going to choose this crystal. And then we had a trip to Los Angeles. I don't know how that happened. Again, another thing, I don't really know how it came about, but that was actually in astrocartography on my Sun and Mercury MC line. And I just met beautiful people out there, just random conversations. And that, I think, gave me the push to train in crystal therapy properly, because I could see how this was a lifestyle that, my experience, I suppose, of crystals up until then had been, the odd health food shop or, the rock shop, and then when I went to Los Angeles and saw how people were using crystals sort of as lifestyle tools, essentially, and in a much more deeper way and a much more accepted way, like very open about it.
Yes.
That was really, really special. And that sort of set me on the path of training as soon as pretty much I got back home.
Because I feel like in Ireland there's a lot of alternative therapies and healing modalities emerging very, very strongly because there's just such demand for it. But it's still a very brave step, I would feel, for you to go into, for anybody to go into a very alternative way of living and a business. And again, that comes back to the trust element, going, okay, I'm providing something that perhaps hasn't been fully provided in Ireland before, but I'm trusting that people will come to it and need it, and there will be an energetic exchange from that,
Yeah. And I felt, I suppose, with my design background, that I could make it as interesting visually as possible. There is no batiks and there's no bad fonts. I wanted all my fonts to be nice, and all that sort of stuff. So to be able to, I suppose, bring in that design element to an experience that's much deeper than that, as sort of a way in, was important to me, because it gave me, I suppose, it also helped me sort of have not admiration, but acceptance of my path that had been beforehand. So it helped me to sort of transition, because design and aesthetics is so important to me. But I had this calling, because these beautiful crystal helpers had such a huge impact on my life. I wanted to share it. I really, really wanted to share it. And I suppose because I'd come from jewellery and I had all this sort of traditional sort of gemstone knowledge to a degree. I never did fine jewellery, but I would have had, a sort of encyclopedic knowledge of most stones. I felt like I had this thread. So I still, jewellery is such an important part of what I do now. It has a lot more depth to it, and it's so rewarding. Like, I just made a piece for I've done a few brides recently where I map out their birth chart and their partner's birth chart, and then we source crystals from locations on the earth that match them up. So it's like this sort of, again, the same as that bracelet I made as I was moving into a new threshold of my life. It's been beautiful to be able to create that for someone else, that this is this energetic talisman that is supporting you as you move into this new phase of your life. And that experience of working with people in that way is just so much more rewarding than any celebrity or any
Mass
magazine
production.
or
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, or any
yeah.
big contract, because that depth of meaning is there. And I think that's what my journey has sort of all led me to, is everything can have meaning, every single thing.
Yeah.
We can bring intentionality to every part of our life, and we can make it difficult or we can make it simple, and I know I have a tendency to go down rabbit holes and be very nerdy about
I was saying.
specifics. But there's magic in that, because
Mm,
that's slipping into that space of co-creation. It's not things like you said, like instead of a breakdown, seeing as a breakthrough, instead of things happening to you, things happening for you. And with hindsight, we can all look back. Like I look back at that time where I didn't want to be, I'd open my eyes and I'd be disappointed that I was having another day on this incredible planet.
mm.
Um, but I needed to get to that point to then evolve into this next
Yes.
space. So I
Yes.
don't have any, it's strange because I don't have any shame or pain or
Or
anything
should you?
residual
Yeah.
in my body around that time.
Yeah.
Even though at the time I felt that's all I felt,
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
but when you can look back on those periods in your life with kindness and with
And
gratitude
I feel
for,
gratitude for
yeah,
them. Yeah. And go, oh God, thank God that
yeah,
happened
because
because now it has got, yeah,
I'd still
thank
be on
God
the
it,
hamster wheel.
yeah, it's gotten me to where I am and has served me so well. Let's dive into the crystals themselves now. I'm going to show you a piece. So I was walking on a beach in Kerry and I found this piece, and the beach was full of quartz. It was the most amazing place. And then I found this, and it is a enormous chunk of quartz in the shape of like a love
Oh
heart.
God, it's beautiful.
It's so
Wow.
cool. I love it. So I wanted to talk like more about the kind of, I suppose, the scientific side of crystals, what they can be used for. Um, and like it's when you talk about this kind of stuff, it's like I tend to, it can go into the realm of mysticism and magic, and I'm good with that as well because
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in all of that. Like science and mysticism and magic were all one at one point,
Yeah,
until like it
absolutely.
became split. So let's talk about the crystals themselves.
Yeah, so they I think what's so magical about crystals is they come from the earth. So, they help us to connect with the earth in situations where we're maybe not able to lie down on the floor in a forest. At a very basic level, that's sort of what their frequency helps us with. But the internal structure of crystals that we can't see is what makes them so magical. So
Wow.
every crystal has what's called a crystalline lattice structure. So if you imagine that the sort of molecular arrangement inside your quartz heart that you have there is
Mm.
this expansive, perfect geometry that's frequency is so stable it cannot be changed. Like even with quartz, because it's piezoelectric, you can actually squeeze quartz and it will emit an electric charge. But even
Wow.
as you squeeze it, it's the perfect geometry within it will bounce back. It's never going to be altered. It cannot be changed.
Wow.
Which is really, really beautiful. So the symmetry and the perfection, they're just the most perfect example, I suppose, of geometry within nature.
Mm.
And the reason that they're so useful in technology, like if we were all still carrying massive bricks from the 80s around instead of our
Yeah.
iPhones, is this ability to program them. So there was an experiment in Stanford University where they were able to get an hour of video footage of the Mona Lisa into, it was a lab made quartz, but it was a lab made crystal, but it was basically 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch cube. And you could store an hour's worth of video on that.
Wow.
And that's just at a very, basic level. Like we don't
Yeah.
fully understand what crystals can essentially do. And Tesla
Mm.
believes that they were living forms, and
Yeah.
there's much more intelligence within them than I think that we've discovered yet. But we use them in lasers, we use them in phones, we use them in computers. They're so powerful because of that programmability, and particularly clear quartz.
Mm.
Is just so programmable, and it has this electrical effect as well. And something that's really cool you can do is if you're in a dark room with two quartz, you can strike them together and they'll light up and
Yeah.
they'll sparks, and it's just
You
the
can even
coolest
do
thing.
it. You can even do it like if you strike them together, not in a dark room, and then smell them.
Yeah.
It smells like sulfur. They
Yeah.
spark off each other. It's
Yeah.
so cool. And I think it's really interesting as well that, you're saying that crystals are used in all technology, which they are, but a lot of people don't know that. So a lot of people will kind of go, oh, that's a really kind of fluffy mindset to go, oh,
Yeah.
crystals
It's
are
like
so powerful. Or they,
Silicon Valley,
yeah,
silicon,
don't
silica.
yeah, literally it's all based on crystals. And I feel like as well, I mean, for people who are just, I would call it, well, crystal curious is what we'll call it, who are getting into crystals, like where should they start? And also, like, how would it work for them? I feel like crystals, like I have, when I meditate, I have a little like candle in the center, and I put a crystal grid out from that. So I set my intention into the crystal grid. And I feel like for me, but you probably have a better way of putting it, it's like it amplifies my intention. So that's how I use them. So I feel like any intention I can put into a crystal or use them, it amplifies it into the grid lines of the earth almost, because that's where they
100%.
where they came from. So I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm right in thinking that, but
Yeah,
that's just what I think.
yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. And there's been some projects. There's a beautiful crystal teacher I've worked with, and she did a project where she actually placed crystals with intention all around the world. And she created this project where people would set an intention in a particular quartz point, being a very powerful one for transmitting information, transmitting intentions particularly, and putting it back in the earth so that we could create this sort of grid across the
Wow.
planet, which is just the most beautiful project.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
the programmability, like you said, putting an intention into a crystal is so powerful because of that programmability, because of this
yes.
perfect geometry within it. Because that's what it's used for, storing information, storing huge amounts of information, and then connecting that with the energy around us and
Wow.
transmitting it. So what breaks my heart is that lots of people are buying fake crystals at the moment, and they don't have that internal geometry. So if
Yes.
you're using opalite or goldstone, or there's quite a few on the market that are just man-made blue
Yeah.
obsidians, they're just glasses.
Wow. Yeah.
So it breaks my heart that someone is sort of putting a lot of energy into something that isn't giving them the best effect, that isn't
Yeah.
connecting them with the earth, that isn't and obviously in terms of connecting with a crystal or any object that you've put intention into, and if you see it and you connect with it and it's almost acting like a physical mantra, that can
Yeah.
obviously work with any of the man-made crystals if that's what you have. But in terms of feeling the physical effects of this so what happens is a thing called entrainment. So because crystals have this perfect, very stable, always steady frequency, then
Mm.
our human energy system, as we've already talked about, can be a little
Yeah.
bit all over the place. We can feel very different. Think about what's going on in the human body at all times. There's so
Mm.
much healing, digesting, changing, shedding skin. There's so much happening
Mm.
that when we bring a crystal into our energy field, it starts to try and mimic the perfection and the stability of the frequency of the crystal. So
Oh,
it starts to want to copy it. Because this the more unstable
I'm gonna
frequency is
keep
always
this.
like, yeah, see that right
I'm gonna keep this crystal, this massive quartz
there.
crystal, close to my heart.
So that's why
Wow.
wearing jewelry, or my favorite way of using crystals, which is keeping them in my bra, choosing
Yes.
crystals for the day, decide which ones, how do I want to feel today? So today I've got like my Mercury line crystals, I've got chrysoprase from Queensland, and I've got Vance and Blue Jade from kind of San Francisco area, which are my
Wow.
Mercury lines, because I was going to be speaking with you. So you
Yeah.
can bring that frequency into your field all day, and that could be a bracelet or a necklace or a ring or whatever. But choosing them to have as your like secret crystal allies for the day can be really, really powerful. But by
Absolutely.
giving a crystal an intention is so important, because
Yeah.
it's not just like any a piece, like, let's see the example, a piece of glass like opalite. If you give that an intention, it's not going to store it and transmit it to the same degree as
Mm.
this perfect geometry, this perfect frequency, this
Yes.
programmable, beautiful gift from the earth. It's a very
Yeah.
different experience, and that's why people can feel. And the more attuned you become, and the more you work with crystals, you can tell a fake crystal, because you can hold it and you're getting nothing, or you're getting really bad vibes from it, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
So it's really important, and in the same way that crystals are programmable, to when you bring a crystal home, to go through a ritual of cleansing it in some way.
Yes.
It's really, really important, because whatever journey that that crystal has taken, if you're buying it in a crystal shop, think about how many people have picked that up. And it's
Mm,
this sponge, it's this energetic sponge that is picking up everybody's little, whatever's going on for
stuff. Their
their life,
stuff.
their
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really important. And if your friends pick up your crystals, just get into the habit of cleansing them. It's kind of like energetic hygiene for crystals,
I
because
love.
yeah, it's just, they're just going to soak it all up. They're so soak it all up. So cleansing is really important. And people can get really have this as a bit of a stumbling block, that there's a particular way to do it.
Mm.
Again, your motto, keep it simple, because I think when you're starting working with crystals, it can be very overwhelming. And it was for me. And I think that was the core reason I wanted to share. And in the courses I do and events and things I've done, it's breaking it down so that it's easy and it's fun
Mm.
and it's accessible, and it's not this big, it's not more rules for your life. You don't need more rules for your life.
Yes. Yeah,
You
I
want
agree.
this to be an intuitive experience. So when you get a crystal home, some crystals will react really badly in water, like selenite would dissolve. Anything with ite in the end, you don't want to put near water.
Okay.
But you can use rice, you can use salt. They're a bit wasteful, because you need to actually throw the rice away and you need to actually throw the salt away. So my favorite is just passing through some sacred smoke. That could be sage or palo santo or mugwort, or, to be honest, any herbs that you can find around Ireland or wherever you live.
Just set them on fire and
Just set them
just
on fire. And again, it's that intentionality. It's like, I'm setting this on fire for a reason.
yeah, I love it. I'm
And
going
it
to
just,
cleanse it. Yeah.
yeah, and you can use that for your space as well. It's bringing that frequency of intention, and also the history of how those herbs were used throughout cultures, and keeping that in
Yeah.
mind. And you
Yeah.
just have to surround your crystal in the smoke. And as you do so, just saying the intention, I cleanse this crystal of anyone else's energy or anything that doesn't
Mm,
serve my highest good. It can be so simple. It's just that, or
yeah.
you can use selenite, which is one of my favorite
It's
crystals. And you can
beautiful.
just
Yeah.
place your crystals on selenite, which is another crystal, and that will like cleanse them and charge them, and they feel really happy. And again, that's only, you need to do that for about half an hour. um
Sometimes I charge mine under moonlight as well.
yes,
Under a
yeah,
full moon, I put them all out and I'm like, okay, I
yeah,
set the intention that you guys are going to be cleansed of
I do that too,
everything.
because
I
the full
love
moon
it.
is that time that we release. It's the time of the
Mm,
month where we want to release anything that's not serving us as we move into the next phase. So
mm,
the full moon is particularly good for cleansing your crystals, definitely. But because it's
lovely.
Ireland, just be aware, because the rain. um,
Yeah.
I've lost a beautiful pyrite and matrix. The matrix disappeared. It just dissolved. And
Oh
yeah,
my God.
so
Maybe we'll just put them in the windowsill
the
on the
windowsill is
inside.
great,
Yeah.
or like, sort of glass Tupperware if you have it, or
Yeah, yeah. Or
yeah, because
when those cake covers that you can
yes,
just put on
yeah, put
top
on
of
top,
it.
yeah, because it was dust by the morning. It was so
Oh my
heartbreaking, but anyway.
goodness.
So just to be kind of intuitive about it, but also there's the practicalities of, you don't want to damage your beautiful crystal that you've gotten
Yeah,
home.
absolutely.
And in the same vein, you can put crystals in your water as long as they're tumbled. And there's only a few crystals that I would put into water, because you can get aluminium or asbestos or all this fun stuff in your drinking water.
Wow.
So quartz family only is probably the best sort of
So you'd put it
safeguard.
in a glass of water and drink from it?
Yeah.
Oh,
So have you ever
wow.
seen Dr. Emoto's work, the hidden messages in
Yes.
water? So when you
Yes.
put crystals into a glass of water, and you can leave it for even more impact, you can leave it out in the sunshine.
Mm.
And there's a amazing woman called Veda Austin that you could look up as well, that she actually puts sunlight through sacred geometry filters, and then freezes the water to be able to see these incredible patterns within it. So you're
Wow.
essentially wanting that entrainment to happen, but with your water, so that it takes on the frequency of your crystal. So one of my
Wow.
favorite things to use is shungite, because shungite also has all these magical properties for well-being. And there was a Nobel Prize awarded for the discovery of these C60 fullerenes that are emitted from this crystal. So it's from this, what should be a radioactive lake in Karelia in Russia, but it has this most magical healing water. So it's a
Wow.
really fascinating crystal. So I always have shungite in my water, but for any other crystals that you can put in water, just making sure they're tumbled, making sure they're smooth, making
What
sure
does
that they're
tumbled mean? Sorry, I don't
the
know.
tumbled would be like I'm showing this on screen, which is very helpful, but it's
Yeah.
smooth. You know, the smooth
Oh, okay. So not
ones.
raw cut. Yeah.
No, not
Yeah.
raw.
Okay.
Making sure it's clean, just clean with a little soap and water. So again, sticking with the quartz family would be ideal because they're really hardy for water.
Yeah.
But you know, just check online. There's loads of lists of what to use. But you know, rose quartz is beautiful. Clear quartz with an
Mm,
intention. Just take. I mean, a clear tumbled quartz looks like nothing special.
yeah.
But if you can bring that intentionality to it, and if you can set an intention and then place that in your water and then place that glass of water out under the moonlight or under the sunlight, it's just, you know, you're actually setting
Oh,
that, you know, you're
yeah.
imbibing your
Yeah.
intention.
You're ingesting all this gorgeous intention and light codes and everything else. I just love it.
Yeah,
And it gets amplified, I imagine, through the crystal.
absolutely.
So going from crystals into a system called human design, let's talk about that. This is so fascinating. I did look at it myself probably about a year ago. Somebody had said, I think you'd be interested in human design. I took a look at it and I thought, this is amazing, but this is so complex. I can't give it the time that it deserves.
It
So
is
I'm
so
so glad that
complex.
somebody else has done the work for me.
It
Thank you.
is so complex. Yeah, it is really complex. And I suppose I view human design a little bit differently than maybe some other people in that I kind of fuse it with crystals. So I'm fusing it
Beautiful.
with the energy of the earth because this is a
Mm,
cosmic system. I find to be able to actually, you know, it's a system that's all about getting into the wisdom of the body. And we are so much in the mind in our culture today
mm,
that this is sort of a roadmap for coming home to the body, which is
beautiful.
the part of it that I love so much. But what it is it's a new system, kind of 1987. But what it does is it fuses together and synthesizes the I Ching, which is an ancient Chinese divination system that's thousands of years old, the Kabbalah tree of life, Western astrology, the chakra system, the kind of Hindu Brahmin chakra system, and then
Beautiful.
quantum physics as well. So again, like I was saying,
Wow.
I'm
Yeah.
kitchens environment. I like mashing all these things together. So a synthesis really appealed to me. And there's many, I suppose, there's been a bit of an explosion in human design and how many people are becoming aware of it. And it's absolutely amazing because it
Mm,
is such a powerful tool. I've never worked with a modality that has helped me to kind of love and accept myself more.
wow.
It's so powerful because you're almost looking at it's kind of an instruction manual that, that shows you
Yeah.
all the things you're not, as well as all the things you are. So you can
Wow.
see clearly, okay, I have been trying to be this my entire life. I don't have access to it. And then once you realize I don't actually have access to that energy, and every time I'm striving for that energy and it's leaving me feel absolutely rubbish, instead of doing
Mm,
that, you just go, oh my God, but I look around this corner, I have this gift instead. Stop trying to be what you're not. So you have these
beautiful.
centers that are open and closed. So it does build on the chakra system, but it's
Uh-huh.
about 9 centers instead of 7.
Okay. Interesting.
So when Uranus was discovered, and we'll chat about your Uranus opposition. So this is a very special planet. So Uranus was discovered back in 1781. And through this messaging that the founder of human design experienced, which like I love how human design is used in so many sort of coaching modalities that wouldn't be super mystical, and they're like,
Yeah.
it is the most mystical thing. Like he had an
Yeah.
8-day mystical experience in a shack in Ibiza, you know, like come on.
Wow. I'm in. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So he's Robert Allen Krakauer, who then was given this name Ra Uru, who by this experience, this voice, he wrote for 8 days straight. And he had, I don't think, had any knowledge of these ancient systems of Kabbalah, of I Ching, anything. But this entire system was laid out during this experience.
That was some night in Ibiza, I'm
I
telling you.
know. And he is so open about, you know, don't believe me, just experiment for yourself. He's sort of
That's
like
what
an
I like.
anti-guru. He's an anti-guru.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hate guru-ness. Like my whole MO is empowering people to figure stuff out for themselves,
You are
you
your
know.
own guru. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. And I think gurus bring so much, genuinely they do, and there's so much guidance, and it is wonderful. But I think if you stick with one guru, you're stuck to one system that maybe doesn't always work. And I love the fact that this guy that you're talking about who developed human design says, don't believe me, go figure it out
Yeah,
for yourself. That's my
yeah,
thing. It's like,
yeah.
even with this podcast, you don't have to listen to it. You don't have to believe anything that we're talking about it. Go figure it out for yourself. This is just an offering. That's all it is,
Exactly,
which is wonderful.
exactly. And I think he started by sort of sharing the gifts and the magic in people's charts, and no one
Mm.
would listen to him. So then he started saying, "This is all the shadow, and this is all the stuff that you're not." And his language can be quite triggering for a lot of people. But on my journey, so I started with human design 4 years ago, in my own experiments, just trying to, again, like this long process of
Yeah.
deconditioning and peeling back layers. And it's what's really actually helped is coming back to his original lectures and his original language, because I've been through around the houses with different teachers and different language systems. And if we are open to the fact that this was a very mystical experience, that this voice transcribed a system that was supposed to help us essentially evolve as a species, come back home to ourselves, then we have to view those words that are being used in the original language as
Mm.
non-human, that
Mm.
this is a transmission. And actually, I really believe words have so much frequency. And if we are to engage with the system, I think the original wording is actually, the frequency of that holds quite a lot of power.
Mm.
So again, I sort of, the wording, when I started to try and discover it myself, was so confusing, and it still is a little confusing. But it's been what's naturally unfolded a lot more for me, is going back to
Mm.
the original language. And I've got the gate of correction, and the line it's in is called terminal disease, and you're just like, oh great. And that's my earth.
Okay,
Okay, I'm
super.
rounding
Yeah.
into terminal disease. Okay, what do I do with that? But actually, when you stop this, trying to have this instantaneous reaction to something that's going
Yeah,
to
or
put you on this new
judgment. Yeah,
trajectory. Yeah,
yeah.
and I have the channel of judgment. That's what it's part of. So that's really
Oh,
funny.
wow, wow. Okay.
But once you just sort of say, okay, this word is really triggering. Can I just peel back the layers and see it? And really, what it's about, this line terminal disease, is about seeing what's rotten and what needs to be ripped apart
Nice.
and destroyed, and it can't
Yeah.
go on, and you're not going to patch it up. You can very clearly see what is very
Needs
wrong
to
and
be cut.
needs to be cut.
Yeah.
And I have Pluto in my first house, like you do, so we're good at that. We're
Oh
good
my
at
goodness. Tell me, so
it.
you have, okay, so with the details that I mean, this is an offering that you have on your website as well, but the details you took for me were my name, my date of birth, and my birth location. And so I'm kind of like, what has she seen in my chart? Can we
Well,
go
there's,
through it a
yes,
little
yeah, yeah,
bit?
yeah. So
I'm
so the
nervous.
no, 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 no. To be honest, there's a beautiful kind of energetic story, and particularly because it's Hilary's Uranus opposition a week after we're recording this. So this is a huge part of human design. So what I love about the system is that, we, again, with society, we're sold that this sort of like, we need to have all our stuff together by the time we're sort of 30. We need to be,
Uh-huh.
engaged and about to have a kid or whatever, and human design goes, that's absolute rubbish. That's a Saturnian model. So we're moved from the Saturnian model of kind of dying around 30, that now we live till we're 84, which is the orbit of Uranus, doing a
Beautiful.
full return to its original position. So we're working with this Uranian system, and the Uranian being is 9 centers rather than the traditional 7. So there's been a split into slightly more complex, nuanced systems in centers.
Mm.
So what with human design, it is so complex because we are so complex. I think, there's a lot of, it's a bit of a bugbear of mine that people see type, and you might have heard of type, that I am a manifestor, I'm a projector, I'm a generator.
Okay,
That,
yes, I've
yeah.
seen those. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But this is really just describing your aura, and it is really important because it helps us see what our strategy is in the world, how we can kind of best navigate the world, and also how other people's auras might be affecting us. But I get really annoyed that a system that's so complex is being used to put people into boxes. It's not about being in a box. Like your
Mm.
birth time, we've got everything detailed, and that we can see this beautiful complex picture. So although type is so important, think of it as your aura. Not to think of it as the box you've been put in,
Yeah, so
just
not
how
to get
your
hung up
aura.
on just the type, I
Yeah,
suppose. Yeah,
because
yeah.
your authority is so important as well. So you are a projector.
Okay.
So you're the newest type of human beings.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So you only started to be, projectors only started to be born around the discovery of Uranus in 1781. So projectors are the guides. So projectors are really, really magical. And your aura type is like focused and absorbing. So you see people better than they see themselves. That is your magic gift. And there's sort of the hierarchy that we've been working with in the sort of old system of humanity has had manifestors at the top. So two famous manifestors that we have Donald Trump and we have Putin at the moment, just for a description. You know, manifestors are amazing, but just to see the low, maybe lower expression of that, you know, and whatever you may think of those two men, we see a very kind of masculine energy used maybe not in the best way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what's interesting is that projectors are becoming that top of the hierarchy. They're on their journey to become the guides that we're working. Projectors work much more from awareness than from power, you know, that it's much more guiding, seeing the magic in people and seeing the steps needed to sort of fulfill the potential of humanity, essentially.
Okay.
But what's so interesting about human design is that we're all, you know, we're all parts of this puzzle. It doesn't say that we are any better or worse than anyone else. It's that if we embody our fullest expression, if we embody our aura type, if we embody our strategy, which I'll talk about next, that's how humanity evolves. It's not by doing anything that we're told to do. It's about coming home to this unique expression of this cosmic event that each of us are, and to really lean into that. That's how the world is going to operate at its fullest potential, really.
Wow.
So it goes against everything we've been told.
Yeah, because and again, it's like, you know, it's a thought process that can be hard to grasp because it doesn't feel tangible, you know what I mean? But again, you were coming back to the trust that, you know, in the energetics of it, that we have to.
Absolutely. So then your profile is a 5-1. So a 5-1 is it's the heretic investigator.
Heretic. A heretic investigator. I like it. Okay.
So you're the sort of natural teachers of the world, and it's sort of the most transpersonal karma. So it's very much to do with the people you're going to meet. And I don't know if you've experienced meeting people in your life as it is now, where you feel a sort of sense of deja vu. And that's very much you've sort of come back for this lifetime to tie up quite a lot of loose ends and have experiences with people that you may have already known from particular lifetimes previous.
100%. Yeah.
But I mean, the 5-1 is amazing because the one line, the investigator part of you is building this foundation. And I love how much we've talked about this sort of foundation and then building from there, because it's exactly the energy of line 1, which is the investigator. So this is something that other people might see in you more than you see within yourself. But you're a natural authority on what you're sort of passionate about and what you love researching, and all those rabbit holes we've gone down.
Yeah.
So helpful. So you've got this beautiful foundation, but you might not see yourself as the expert, and you might constantly feel like you have to do more, you have to search more, but actually you have so much innate knowledge already within you from your experiences, just naturally. And then the 5 line is very much sort of a teaching, really amazing energy that people can kind of come to you and think you can solve all their problems. This is the hard part of the 5-1. They see you as a savior, basically. So and then when you're sort of with your projector strategy, it's about being recognized and invited and waiting for an invitation. So waiting for an invitation, for the best way for this to work is someone needs to actually recognize all this magic, all these gifts, all this knowledge that you have, and then they need to invite you into sharing. So when things with the 5-1 go a little bit wonky is when that particularly as a projector, you know, when that invitation isn't there, and you don't
feel like a command.
Yes.
But yeah. No, I get it. And I've learned that it's like, you know, I can't And it's interesting that you're saying all of this because it totally rings true with me that I can't turn around and say, you need to do this because this is what's going to be good for you, blah, 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 blah. I just need to back away from that
Yeah.
entirely. And I've learned that. I hope I continue to practice it.
Yeah.
And I'll just sit. And if they
Yeah.
need me, they can come to
Well,
me.
you're already there on your deconditioning journey. This is amazing because that's the hardest part. Being a projector is you can see what's gone wrong. You can see what someone could
Mm,
do that would
mm.
completely change their life. And if they don't ask you for it, you have to keep it inside. And it's
Yes.
brutal.
It's frustrating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very, very
Yeah.
frustrating.
Yeah.
So the sort of
Especially the people
signature thing,
closest to you, especially the
yes,
people closest to you. And it's something that I've learned on this journey, which has been, and this is going to sound, I don't know how it's going to sound, but I'm going to say it. One of the first things that I learned on this journey in the different modalities that I used was that you have to let the people you love most suffer because it's their journey.
yeah,
And as much as it's a killer, it's a heartbreak. You can't intervene because it's like it's their journey, you
it's
know,
their
just
journey.
like
Yeah,
my journey was my journey. And like you said, like I feel like I try to put myself in a position where I'll always be here for you no matter what. You can come to me, but it's your journey,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. That's, I mean, that's amazing. And it's so funny because the five, the heretic aspect of you is best used for the wider public rather than those close to you. Those close to you, it can go really, really wrong, really wrong.
It has, Merle. It has. Yeah.
Because people see you as a savior, and if you don't solve their problems that they come to you with, then you know essentially are being stoned in the street because
Yeah.
because they saw this sort of, they project, it's a projection field, it's a very strong projection field, so people are seeing in you what needs almost healing in themselves. So
Wow.
you're this mirror, it's like a karmic mirror, the five.
Yes.
And that you can, if you enter into you know, supporting someone or helping someone when you can feel the energetic exchange is going to be correct, or that you can actually, when you know you can sort this out, you know you can actually help them,
Mm.
then it's magic. But if you're not entirely sure and someone's demanding this of you, it can go really, really wrong, and you can feel like you've let people down when in fact you
Yeah.
haven't. It's just you didn't
Mm.
have the energetic match was wrong. You're
Mm.
not Jesus, you know, which people can you know. So the founder actually of Human Design, Ra, used to wear really strange or you know, kind of comments on his clothes, and he'd wear a baseball cap that would always have something written on it to
Mm.
distract people, because people are automatically staring at you. You know, they're energetically staring at you,
Mm.
and by wearing these interesting things on his head and on his t-shirts, people would look at that and think that that's what they were looking at, and they wouldn't be boring into your being, seeing all their
Wow.
reflections back. So yeah, it feels, can feel, I have a 2 in my profile, that's another projection field, and a projection field can feel very uncomfortable because you can
Mm.
feel eyes on you, but you don't
Yeah.
fully understand what people are wanting from you, so it can be
Yes.
really, really tough.
And
um
that can, I think, lead to burnout or just,
yes,
you know, yeah, that can lead to burnout when you feel like there's a constant draw of like
yeah,
people wanting something from you, you know.
exactly,
Mm.
exactly. But because you're a projector, you know, we've been told again that masculine energy of initiating, there's actually only one type, the manifester, who's supposed to initiate. The rest of us are supposed to work and move through the world in a very different way. So your strategy is to wait for an invitation.
Hmm.
So because you're so sort of naturally gifted, and most projectors have really sort of high intellect and are very kind of smart, and because you can see so many patterns and you can see the mechanisms almost of the world in a way that the rest of us can't, um, someone needs to really recognize you, to fully see you, and then offer you an invitation. And then
Okay.
when you get offered an invitation, the waiting part can be quite tricky. So while you're waiting for something to come towards you, for that sort of magnetism to happen, it's just about believing in yourself and doing whatever you can to build up that trust muscle in your own gifts, doing
Mm.
what you love, honing your craft, whatever you can do to solidify your self-worth, particularly to do with these gifts that you have that are just so innate within you.
Wow.
But people really need to see you, and if people don't see you properly, they can sort of see you as, because you're an energy projector, you have a little bit more energy than most other projectors, they can kind of see you as, oh, she can do that for me, rather than,
Yes.
yeah,
Oh, yes.
It's
Yeah.
rather than I fully witness you. I see you're amazing. I'm inviting you into this opportunity that you'll be able to fully express those gifts, rather than
Yeah.
I can see you can do that, so do that,
Yes.
or oh my God, you're amazing at doing this, but then not, or say gets given instance of giving advice to someone, they say, oh, you have your life sorted, you've such amazing, advice, and your writing is beautiful, whatever. And then they don't invite you to share. You're just like, what? Why? But
What's the
give me
point? Yeah,
exactly. So
yeah.
that could be really annoying as well. But
Mm.
the theme, or the signature sensation of being a projector is success. And again, like we spoke about earlier, defining what that success is for you,
Beautiful.
and how does
Yeah.
success feel in your body. It's not a mental thing, it's not an external thing, it's how does it feel in your body. And then your signpost, we were talking about these signposts when you're not in alignment. That's the feeling of
Yeah.
bitterness.
Oh, yeah. Brilliant.
So that's
Brilliant.
your flag, that's your red flag, that's your
Yeah.
signpost going, you've taken a wrong turn, this isn't in energetic match. And
Yes.
there's so much about your profile that is to do with community and with this relationship with other people. Like, it's mad how much the community and changing community and seeing potential in people and
Wow.
equality, like that's the common thread that runs so powerfully through your chart, which is incredible. So your
Wow.
authority is how you make decisions, and this is one of the most powerful parts. So your authority is emotional authority, and you have a beautiful emotional wave called the ratchet, which is
Sounds violent.
yeah. So it's the tribal ego circuitry wave. So again, this is when we're looking at human design chart, there's so many components to it, but these are
Mm.
sort of the starting parts that you can start to contemplate and work with. And when it comes to projectors strategy, waiting for an invitation, it's quite a hard one, because you can't do anything in the moment.
Yeah.
You're just
Yeah.
trying to align yourself, and that next opportunity that comes up to feel more into that alignment. But in the moment, I'm a generator, so I can ask myself yes, no questions, and I can get in touch with my sacral authority. But for the projector, it's quite difficult, because you're just having to wait for life to bring you something, essentially. And in the
Yeah.
meantime, lots of love for yourself, lots of love for your gifts.
And that's such a
Um,
good lesson, though. And that's really what I've come to in the last 2 years, is
yeah.
exactly that I have to, but this is fascinating. Yeah, that I have to be present, I
Yeah.
suppose, and be kind to myself and know and trust that it's all working out in the spiral the way that it does.
Absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely. And in the meantime, yeah, just building up your trust and belief in yourself, because the more you can do that, and I think you already have that awareness of your frequency, and keeping your frequency a certain way, that
Mm.
is what's kind of magnetizing. So just sharing what you're doing, sharing what you love, and then the right people will come and give those invitations that will allow you to express those gifts really, really fully.
Mm.
So your authority is emotional authority. So emotional authority, when you're making a decision, Ra always said there's no truth in the now. So when someone asks you to do something, you say, can I get back to you tomorrow? Or can I get back to you in a couple of days? And this could be really for the big decisions. So say a career opportunity, a move,
Yeah.
something very big, with smaller day-to-day decisions, you can feel into it. But when you're at an emotional high, um, someone could offer you a really bad opportunity, and you think it's amazing. You think it's the best thing that has ever happened to you. And
Yeah.
you're just like, yes, amazing. And then when you're in a low, someone could offer you the greatest opportunity of your life, and you'll bat it away. You'll be like, no, no,
Wow.
I want nothing to do with this. So it's about coming to a sort of an even keel. And the ratchet wave is every emotional wave is slightly different, depending on the circuitry. So you're in tribal circuitry. So when you're going through an emotional wave, or your highs or your lows, you sort of need to come to that point where there's a bit of stillness. Imagine still waters. That's not a
Mm,
wave crashing,
mhm,
and it's not the
mm.
dip. It's the stillness. And once you come to that point, emotional authority will never have 100% clarity. So don't push yourself to have 100% clarity. It's about really feeling it in the body. But because this is a tribal wave, and it's called the ratchet because it goes up a little bit and then you might feel a little bit low again, and then it goes up a little bit and low and go up and up and up and up, and at the very top it's like a nuclear explosion, and then 3 seconds later you're like, oh god, I feel great again. So I
Yeah.
don't know if that resonates with you.
Yeah, I think you could ask my husband. Yeah.
And what's funny is that, this tribal circuitry is that how important touch is. So, you're saying about your husband, and a way that he could support you is literally just if he places a hand on your shoulder, a hug, just ask for hugs. If you're feeling up or down in any way,
Yes.
just a hug from, your children, whatever it is, just to get that physical touch, because it's that feeling of the tribe, that tribal circuitry of feeling like you're supported and you're in the tribe, you're not ostracized, you're in it, for your feelings. My feelings are too much, I'm going to get kicked out of the tribe. It's that kind of energy,
Yeah.
rather than this beautiful supportive nurturing energy. So ask for that. I know we don't really ask for physical touch very
I
often, but
I
yeah,
do.
good.
I only had this conversation recently with somebody else, and we talked about the importance of touch. It's so funny that you're bringing it up again. And yes, I go to my kids for hugs all the time, to the point where they're like, "Mom, get off me," you know. I really need a hug. I
Yeah,
really, and I like to. And then during this conversation, this person was saying, it's good to offer hugs, and it's such a brilliant thing as well to offer
yeah,
the hug. Like, do you want a hug? And I've said it to
yeah,
my husband a million times. I'm like, if I am, like you said, about to explode in a nuclear version of myself, just give me a hug.
yeah,
It'll
yeah,
disarm me
yeah,
straight away. But he
yeah.
runs. He's going out the door. He's like, no, no, no. I'm like, that's not going to help.
But I suppose it's kind of that awareness about yourself, and not having any guilt or shame, or like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm being a pain in the ass because I'm an emotional person. It's just be like, no,
Yes.
that's your this is your authority. This is how you make decisions in the world. This is
Mm,
the wisdom that you check in with anytime you're making a
mm,
new move. It's so powerful, and you're an emotional person, and that's perfect. That's exactly how you were designed. So
mm.
again, rather than criticizing ourselves for being a certain way, we go, okay, if I embody this and I have this awareness around it, this is how I'm best serving the collective.
Absolutely. And it's about
um
trusting in the body as well. Like the emotions are there that's again something that I've come to. Like the emotions are there to inform you of something. And
yeah,
it's about like tuning into that. Where is it in the body? How does it feel? And why does it feel that way? And it's the investigation further into that, we
yeah,
can resolve.
absolutely. And I think what's really important with human design is getting into the body. Like it's a
Mm.
very complex, and anyone who wants to explore their own chart, there's a website called geneticmatrix.com, and you can get a free chart there if anyone wants to
Awesome.
check theirs out and go, oh my God, what is this thing? But it
Amazing.
is so complex, and it's quite mind based, but actually it's all about sort of being passenger consciousness. So
Mm.
allowing our journey for this lifetime to be almost like an observer in the back seat of a car. Our body is the car. And then we have this thing called the magnetic monopole, which is sort of in our G center, in the center of our bodies. That's this what's magnetizing everything towards us in our
Wow.
life. And that's the driver. We're not the driver. The mind is not the driver. And the more
Mm.
you can sort of step into that space of body wisdom, body consciousness, and sort of stabilizing the body,
Mm.
how the journey just unfolds. That we
Mm.
don't have to do anything with human design. I think that's what's so nice, is that it's just like
Yeah.
we don't have to do anything. You
Just
just
let
have
it
to have
be.
awareness. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
purely about having awareness. So
Tell
your
me.
your particular emotional authority is so interesting, because it is your north and south node activations. So as your Uranus opposition is coming up in a few days,
Oh
this
my
kind of blew my mind. Because this is what again human design is supporting us in looking at aging as this beautiful thing, where we then step more into being an outer authority, where we can share our wisdom and our experience with the world. So the way Ra describes the Uranus opposition is, up until this point you've been inhaling, and when you get to the Uranus opposition you begin the exhale. And it's just beautiful, because it's not, one can't come without the other. We had to inhale everything we've experienced so far. We had to
Mm.
go on a particular journey. Every single step has led us to this sort of watershed moment that we can exhale. And we're walking a different path now, and we're moving into a space where we are becoming a little bit more of an outer authority. But this is maturation in human design, is
Okay.
43, you know. Um,
Well, I'm gonna be 43 this summer, so there you
So it's
Finally, I'm getting
perfect.
mature.
Yeah, you're finally. My daughter did me my birthday card this last March, and she was like, "Mom, I can't believe you're not a grown up yet at
Oh, it's
39." I
so
was like,
cute.
"Yeah, I have a few more years to go." But just to view the second sort of part of our lives in a much different way. Like, we've
Yeah.
only gotten to the point where we know ourselves now. We're only
Mm,
at the point, and we've still this beautiful journey to go. So, because your emotional authority is your south node and what's connecting it to is the north node, um, is so interesting because it's embodying probably a lot more of that connection to your emotions, but you're
mm.
also moving away from the 37, you're moving into the 40, and this is the channel of community. Like, community comes up just so much in your chart, it's
Really?
wild.
Wow. Wow.
And your north node is in Virgo, and it's in the 11th house, which is about community and healing, and you're moving from the Pisces energy of south node, and the 37 is all to do with sort of friendship and equality, and um, Pisces energy can be a little bit escapist. It's very creative, it's very magical, but now you're moving into kind of grounded practicality and boundaries, and you're moving into the gate of aloneness. And aloneness is not loneliness, it's
No.
aloneness. So it's being part of a tribe, and it's the sort of archetype. The 37 is sort of the archetype of the wife and the mother, and then the 40 that you're moving into is more of that sort of father energy, but it's not a masculine energy as such. It's the, I do work that I love, I come home and I rest, I put my feet up, I've expended my energy, I've entered into this line is all about bargains, and I've entered into something, so I've been invited to do this project that I absolutely love, I've put so much energy and all my heart and soul into it, and now I need to rest. So it's
Mm.
very much about work that you love, but also revisiting your views around resting time,
Yeah,
and
which I
how important it
prioritize.
is.
Yeah, I prioritize that so much more than I ever did. So much more. It's just, yeah, it's vital.
Vital,
Yeah.
vital. So
Mm.
look, you're already on the path of embodying this new way, but Virgo is very much sort of Virgo Pisces, your Virgo North Node, your Pisces South Node is very much that sort of axis of healing. And I think maybe having had the spiritual awakening journey, now that you're moving on to sort of the practicalities of sort of implementing it in your daily life. And Virgo is earth energy, it's the earth goddess energy. And organization is the line, which sounds so uninspiring. But you actually have two organization lines in your chart. That's the name of it. But it's about creating structures that work for you now, like
Uh-huh.
really work for you, not
Mm.
anyone else, not necessarily the tribe. You're still providing for the tribe, and you're still
Yes.
seeing what works for the tribe, but you need that time alone to come up with those solutions. You're not just in it all the time. It's about retreating,
Yes. And getting
and
clarity in
getting
that in those
clarity.
moments. Yeah, I retreat. I
Yeah.
mean, that's why I go on retreats.
Retreat. Go on more retreats.
Because you just
Amazing.
have to retreat, you know? Yeah, yeah, alone time. I'm so happy being alone.
Yeah,
So
I love
happy
it.
with
I
my
have this
own
gate
company.
too. Yeah, I have the gate and I love it. I love
Okay.
being alone. And I think
Yeah.
that was a big struggle. I don't know if you felt that with being a parent,
Oh
being
yeah.
in someone else's energy all day, every day.
Yes,
It
yes.
was
My
crazy.
my two kids, they're amazing, but they're very strong personalities, both of them. And it's just like sometimes it's just carnage, you
Yeah.
know? You're just like, oh my God. And then it comes with that guilt as well of like, oh no, I need lots of alone time. And it's like, well, who do you think you are that you need lots of alone time when your kids are that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I had to prioritize it. I just had to. There was no
Yeah,
two ways about
it's
it.
amazing. So
Mm.
then I mapped out. So what I love about human design is it shows us where planetary energies live in our body. So yours is in the emotional solar plexus.
Okay.
For your south node, and for your north node, it's your stomach. So this is technically and I have had actually a sort of beginnings of an ulcer in the times that I've been really stressed. And this
Same.
this, this is this gate. It's the stomach, and it is the classic overworked, stressed out, person with a stomach ulcer because they've just
Wow.
neglected themselves so much. So very much about rest. But when I mapped it out on your astrocartography map, so astrocartography, for anyone who doesn't know, is where when you were born, you have a birth chart where all the planets were at the particular time of your birth. And then we can place those placements over the world map. That are on these particular angles. So we have the rising, the setting, and the two culmination points.
Wow.
You don't really need to know that, but imagine these beautiful colored ribbons, planetary ribbons running around the Earth's globe. So what I do in my work is to help people connect with, say, your authority, how you make decisions, is to find crystals that come from the regions of that particular planet. So complex, that particular planetary map on the Earth. And what's wild is that for your North Node, as you're stepping into this new phase, this exhalation phase, is when your North Node lines was down through Southern Australia, which is a place called Bimbauri, which is where chiastolite comes from.
Okay.
And chiastolite, I feel, is like the crystal of boundaries.
Oh, really?
And really, it's such a spiritual crystal, and it's so much about sort of seeking. And it was actually used a lot to ward off curses and other people's energy. But it's a real stone for seekers. Like, I don't know, obviously this is a podcast, so you don't see it on screen, but I'll hold it up. You can see
it's gorgeous.
It has a natural cross within it. So it's a crystal that I give to people when they're at a sort of a new phase. They're stepping into a new phase, or they're at a crossroads, or they're feeling all this seeking energy and they don't know which direction to go in next. It's really, really powerful for that. And the Virgo energy in the North Node is such a sort of healing energy. And the placement of where this crystal came from is actually kind of 6th house energy, which again is that Virgo energy of that healing earth goddess, very practical, very organized, but it's not in a kind of Debbie Downer sort of organized way. It's seeing, the seasons and seeing the magic of the organization that nature provides. It's and trying to almost mirror that within your life, really becoming reflective of seasons within your own energy and your own life as well.
And cycles within everything that we
do. And cycles. So often with people, I sort of recommend that you can actually try, and I'll send you these crystals, by the way.
Thank you.
You can try placing this on the spot that this is. So this would be your stomach. So try, if you're trying to connect, or if you're finding that you're in an emotional low or an emotional high, and you're struggling to feel into what the clarity is, that whatever mineral I give you for that particular place on your body, you can try meditating with it actually placed on your body.
That's so cool.
And you're just sort of frequency matching with the planet and with the Earth, because the conditioning that we're receiving from the planets is how the human design system it works. Everything I'm speaking about is to do with the planets, and particularly neutrinos are sort of the quantum physics side of human design, which is if you look at the palm of your hand and you kind of visualize a square, an inch square, every second 3 trillion neutrinos are passing through you from our solar system, and 70% come from the sun. But if you whenever I'm kind of stuck in little small day-to-day things, I just zoom out and I'm just like, 3 trillion neutrinos just passed through. Let's think of the bigger picture here.
Up on your eagle's perch. I like it.
Up on my eagle's perch. So then another way I work is with the other activations within that emotional solar plexus, which is related to the kidneys. That's where your sort of authority is. I use the Gene Keys crystal alphabet, which is another index that is a sort of sister system to human design. So for those I also have crystals for you for those activations within you. So your whole system is covered, because your authority is just so important. It is, I really feel like one of the most important parts of human design is, where do I feel clarity in my body? It's what we all want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. When we are on this embodiment journey, which is so, like I always say, the body has just got, thousands and thousands and thousands of years of this incredible information. And yet we're now in a structure where we don't listen to the body, and we don't listen to that information that's been given to us all day, every day, So if we can retune back into that.
Absolutely.
We're golden.
Absolutely. So we have, your first crystal is pink chalcedony. So this is relating to gate 37, which is your south node. So this is kind of what you're moving away from. people think the south node is something that you need to completely dismiss, but it's not. Like I said, that was your your inhalation journey. You know, that's still a part of you. It's still a part to be recognized and balanced, and you'll always be in a sort of state of equilibrium with that. And so pink chalcedony is just a beautiful kind of divine love. You kind of feel like this sense of you can see the magic in your path so far. You can see the light that you've experienced, and you can see the light within you that has come about because of those experiences. So it's a beautiful kind of soft pink, bubblegum almost pink, translucent energy. And then your other gate in your solar plexus is the 49, which is such a badass gate. I love this one. This is the real revolutionary energy. So again, this is again very community based. It's about seeing the patterns, it's about seeing where things aren't equal, and it's creating new systems. But it's a very much good old destroy and rebirth energy. You know, that
as
rebellious,
the Kali goddess.
Wrecked.
Yeah, that's like the Kali goddess.
Exactly.
Let's take heads, everybody. Let's just take heads.
I love her so much. I really,
She's
really
so
do.
awesome. I remember my husband looking at that picture going, but no, because I mean, she's standing on one. And I said, no, he doesn't look uncomfortable. He's not uncomfortable. He's
No.
placating himself, going, chill, baby, chill.
I love it. So the very badass crystal is malachite for 49, which is all about transformation and rebirth. And because this is in your emotional solar plexus, anything that is stagnant within that, malachite is so good for bringing that up. So the biology for this particular system is going to be the kidneys, but you can also place it on your, traditional solar plexus as well. I've kind of worked with both. But this is I think the chiastolite and the malachite together are real initiation crystals. They're helping you move into something very new with a sense of strength and that kind of Kali energy, like the strength behind you, because you have been through this journey. And as you move into something new, you have complete awareness of your energy and what you want to create in the world and what you want to bring to the world. But it's from a very authentic, embodied place. It's a real goddess energy, malachite, very, very strong. And it's the childbirth crystal, birthing something new.
And this has been a theme for me recently, I think, with the podcast and all the work that I'm doing. It's just like I feel like there's this massive birthing coming through me at the moment, so it's fascinating that you're bringing that up.
Amazing. So I will send these crystals to you, and you can experiment with them, and I'll send you your chart, and I'll circle which of the crazy layout I'm talking about, because it is so complicated.
Amazing. Merle, this has been so fascinating. I mean, we're nearly at 2 hours chat, and I know, and I could keep going, but we're going to do the Live Wild pop quiz, which is the end of the interview, and I really love this, and it's a bit of fun. So okay, I think I know the answer to this anyway. Your name is Merle.
Yes.
When I think of the name Merle, I think of the name Merlin for magic. So do you believe in magic?
I do. And would you believe I went to school with a boy called Merlin?
Oh my God, that's so cool. Merlin. How did you not end up together?
Well, he was I was in a very small school, so he was in a much younger class, but he would always get shouted at, bless him, and I would have such anxiety because the first part, I didn't know he was getting shouted at. So I 100% believe in magic. And like you said earlier, magic is just science that hasn't been discovered yet.
100%, or that it's a little bit beyond comprehension. What do you stand for?
I stand for freedom. I think that's probably my number one.
Beautiful.
Sovereignty.
Beautiful.
Love, probably more than anything, because it's the frequency that brings us all together, and it's the frequency that I think helps us express our best selves, really, in every facet. That sort of pure love that you can't touch. It's not it's not a demonstrative thing. It's it's an energy. It's like a woven, beautiful thread that connects us all.
100%. It's the highest frequency, really. I feel like it's nothing can destroy it. What's your favorite crystal and why?
This is really hard. So I adore selenite. so much. And it also is part of the same way I've mapped out the crystals for your authority. It's the same for mine. It's
Wow.
it connects. So I've loved it for years, but it also connects with the astrocartography from Morocco with my Mars line. So I love selenite. I think if anyone is just going to go buy one crystal, get yourself a selenite, because it's just magic. It's like liquid light. It's so high frequency. You
Wow.
can use it like a cosmic lint roller. You know, you can go over your energy if you've been in a situation that you feel a bit drained by.
Mm.
And I've had an amazing experience with Moldavite these past few years. So I made myself a Moldavite ring. I'd had Moldavite for a while, and Moldavite's actually a tektite. So it's this very high frequency kind of alien crystal, basically.
Cool.
It's super, super expensive now because it went mad on TikTok a few years ago and I can't get it anymore. But I made myself a Moldavite ring beforehand. But it's that energy of it's the Kali energy.
Oh,
It's the tower card. It will destroy everything that is not in alignment for you, and it will just sort of put you on this path. But it's a very, like, for people who can't feel kind of crystal energy, usually they could feel Moldavite because it's so tingly and so
wow.
active. And it doesn't have a crystalline lattice structure within it. It's amorphous, but because of how it was created with this big meteor impact, some of that energy has been essentially frozen within it. And yeah,
Oh,
if you can get some, it's really, really powerful.
that's so interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's really, really good.
If you were to distill yourself down to an essence, what would the essence be?
Ooh, an essence. I thought rose. I don't know why I thought rose. That's very
Beautiful.
strange.
Beautiful. But that's
I
your
think
first
it's,
answer.
I'm like, ooh, that's a visual that I had. It was like a really rich, like rose otto oil. I've always loved
Gorgeous.
that. So I don't know why
Mm.
that came into my mouth. But in terms of like a crystal elixir, I'd probably go Moldavite. I like changing. I like transforming. I like all of that. Um,
Awesome.
yeah, as well.
Moldavite. Okay. What is the wildest thing you've ever done? If you want to share it with us.
Okay. I think, and looking back, this was actually probably the first time I properly tuned into my human design authority, which was my sacral authority, which is essentially my gut.
Mm.
I moved in with my husband after 2 weeks,
Oh,
and I didn't move back to Ireland at the same time. And this was a very long time ago, but it was, I just had this, like, everyone else was going, what are you doing? And I was
yeah.
like, no, like, I've never been so
Wow.
sure of something that was on paper so crazy. And I've been very Libra rising, always been very good, and done things the way that they were appeared to be. And this was the first time I was like, no, 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 I'm staying.
That is wild. Two
um,
weeks. Wow.
yeah, but
Well,
it worked out. It worked out.
yeah,
That was when I was
100%.
21, so a very long time ago.
Wow.
But
That's
yeah, from the surface, and look, it led me on the journey that I've been on, my inhalation journey since then. So
beautiful.
yeah, but on the surface it looked crazy. And then I think, like you were mentioning breath work earlier, I think that helps connect me in terms of a modality that I kind of use to
Yeah.
connect me with that part of myself.
Uh-huh.
Um yeah, I tend to do like the David Elliott style 3-part breath. And yeah, I can just feel so deeply, and you can feel into that place of release.
And
Um,
expanded consciousness.
yeah,
Crazy. And the breath is something that we have within us all day, every day. You can do it anywhere. And it's the first thing you do when you're born, last thing you do when you die. And I'm such an advocate for breath work. I think it's absolutely incredible what you can achieve through it.
yeah, it's so powerful. It's so powerful. And even from the first time you do it, you're just like, whoa,
Yeah.
it has
Yeah.
such a huge impact. So if anyone's like, I need a quick fix of expansion and
Yeah.
um and changing my journey, breath work will do it for
Breath
sure.
work will do it 100%. What's the one thing you do every day that helps you live wild and free, seeing as this is the Live Wild podcast?
Joe, I have a cacao practice that is so important to me. And again, it's from my Venus MC line. So I'm again has that intentionality that whenever I'm not feeling in that kind of feminine energy enough,
Mm-hmm.
I use cacao every day to take that time to feel into that sort of that Venusian energy, that feminine energy every day. So that's something I do every single day. It is one
Wow.
of the rituals that hell or high water is really important to me. It's important medicine for me. And oh, wow, I get out in nature as much as I can as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And it's just connecting with myself and my body. And I use essential oils all the time, so I choose those. Like
Mm.
these sort of gifts of nature, we think aren't accessible to us all the time, but they really are.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
bring that frequency and that energy into so many different parts of your day. So
Mm.
yeah, bringing in the frequency of nature, whether that's cacao or whether it's essential oils, or my beautiful crystals, my first loves.
Yeah.
That's It's the combination of those, but it's that intentional connection with something from nature is so
Wow.
important to me,
Yeah.
because it's hard to feel that way when we're in our little boxes and we're living our lives on the screens
Yeah.
like we are now. We
Yeah,
need to
absolutely.
have
Yeah.
that conscious connection.
Conscious connection. Merle O'Grady, it has been beautiful chatting with you, and we will do it again off air, I imagine, and we might even do it again on air. You never know. Thank you so much for all your time and all your energy and all your wisdom. It's been beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been amazing. I can't believe we've been talking for so long. This is
I know.
amazing. I
I
could
know.
go for hours. It's just so
It's
lovely speaking with you. Thank you, Hilary. Thank you so
no,
much.
my pleasure. My pleasure.